Morning, everybody. How you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I'm Sean Butler. Bugsy Malone's up ahead. This is episode 240 of Tottenham Walks. Hope you're all happy and healthy doing the things you love with the people that you love doing them with. Please do me a favour like you always do. Hit the like button for me on the video. Hit the subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell and drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts on today's topic. And this is going to be sort of two topics that are merged into one that both directly and indirectly affect Tottenham Hotspur. But where I'm going to run with it is really sort of starting to question whether or not competitive football is dead. I don't want to sound hyperbolic, but the stories that are emerging with regard Chelsea's real ownership. Todd Boehly is just the figurehead of an ownership model that currently controls Chelsea. There's 3 or 4 major names, but Todd Boehly is obviously the most vocal and public-facing one. But the actual majority owner of Chelsea is Clearlake Capital, who is an investment fund, a private equity group that are valued at about $76 billion. One of the major investors, it has become clear, into the Clearlake Capital Fund is actually the People's Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia. Now you might know that name because those are the same people that control Newcastle United. And they also control 4 clubs in entirety, 75% in private ownership and 25% through non-profit ownership, 4 clubs in the Saudi Arabian Pro League. Those same 4 clubs that are currently on the cusp of signing 4 or 5 of the surplus to requirements / squad players / deadwood / failed investments of Chelsea's £600 million transfer window last year. Let me break that down for you. The rules of FFP have changed over the last 3 or 4 years. We've spoken about this ad nauseum on our channel, on my channel. The previous FFP rules weren't really fit for purpose. Every time that a club that had obscene wealth came close to breaching them, there was some sort of loophole that was figured out when one door was closed and a window was opened. Manchester City are currently going through however many charges it is, 51 charges or something, alleged to financial impropriety of mechanisms to circumvent the rules. Chelsea themselves, under Abramovich, kind of got ahead of the curve before the FFP rules were really brought in. But the current rules that have been brought in from this season start with a 90% cap, but will eventually, in 3 years' time, get to a 70% cap. That cap, it's only one rule of several, but in a nutshell, that whatever your club's revenue is, whatever your club can generate through revenue, the club can only spend 70% of that number on the combination of player wages, player transfer fees, and agents' fees. And so the vast majority of football clubs who don't have access to endless sums of money have to find ways to raise the top number. You raise the revenue number, and then obviously the 70% number gets higher as well. Daniel Levy is trying to do it through getting every single droplet of blood from the stone that is the giant stadium in North London. Concerts as often as the local council will allow. Go-kart tracks, different sports being played there, boxing, rugby league, whatever. Trying to do everything he can to raise that revenue number so that he can ultimately raise that cost number. Other clubs are doing the same thing. You also have clubs that are thinking outside of the box, that are using multi-club ownership models. And the benefits of that are that you have less waste, less slippage in your cost structure by sharing coaching mechanisms, by sharing the learnings of data analytics, by having one hub that operates all of the cost controls for every club within a multi-club ownership pyramid structure. you can reduce the cost level, you can increase your revenue number, and you can also find better efficiencies and economies of scale. Teams like Manchester City are finding the value and the benefits of investing in multiple clubs at the same time and then trying to use that group to the best effect possible. So you can see that whenever the rules are put into place to try to curtail the abilities of sovereign wealth funds from just coming in and buying up whatever they want, that clubs are trying to figure out the way around it. It's not tax evasion, it's like tax avoidance. You figure out the ways but stay within the law. But we have to ask the question now whether or not what Chelsea are doing and what the Saudi Arabia P.I.F fund is doing is really within the rules. You're not allowed to have two clubs in the same league owned by the same team, by the same group. But the P.I.F don't technically own Chelsea. They are just a significant investor into a fund, a trust, a private equity group that happen to be the majority owner in Chelsea. So they own Newcastle outright, but they have a couple of degrees of separation from being thought of as an ownership within Chelsea. And Chelsea themselves have come out and confirmed that there is no overlap, there is no oversight or overreach, and really there is absolutely no connection at all within the running of the football club and P.I.F, or the money that has been operated and put into Clearlake Capital. Which is hard to believe when you find out that the four clubs that Saudi Arabia have that are owned by the same group, the P.I.F fund, happen to be the four clubs that are paying over the odds, both in transfer fees and in salaries, potentially, most of these deals aren't complete yet, for all of Chelsea's deadwood. Players like Aubameyang, players like Kante, Ziyech, Kalidou Koulibaly, maybe Kepa. All of these players that Pochettino doesn't want and that Todd Boehly wants off the books somehow have managed to find incredible value in the bids from clubs that are owned by the same people and the same fund that has a significant stake in the overall majority shareholders in Chelsea. You couldn't make it up. And so it leaves you with the situation where it doesn't matter how much money Chelsea want to spend every year. If this goes uninvestigated or unpunished, Chelsea can continue to splash out as much money as they want on every up-and-coming prospect that they particularly take their fancy to, and the ones that work will stick around. The ones that won't will be shipped off to Saudi Arabia, who operate outside of the financial fair play regulations because they are outside UEFA and they do not have the same oversight. To me, it leads you to a situation where, as a club that doesn't have that ownership model, as a club that doesn't have endless wealth, and that we have an owner who, for all of his faults and flaws in his willingness to pay the money and negotiate in good faith and not necessarily have to see every transfer conversation as a battle where someone has to win and someone has to lose. You put all that to one side and you can see that as a businessman he is doing everything he can to try to generate as much money as he can within the frameworks of the rules. Yet all of the clubs that are owned by people who see money as no object, they don't seem to have the same problem. I don't know what to do, but when you have two of the top six clubs that are now essentially owned by, for all intents and purposes, the same outfit, you have Manchester United that are about to be part of that same group of teams that are managed or owned rather by nation states. Manchester City are already in there. What chance do Tottenham realistically have? What chance do we have? All we can do is hope that we can maybe, get a bite of the cherry by taking advantage of their obscene wealth if they wanted to come and pay for any of our players. And one of those people is Heung-min's son, who has allegedly had a bid come in from that same club, I think it's Al Ittihad, who wanted to bid 65 million euros or 55 million pound, give or take, Daniel Levy has rejected it outright, according to reports, saying he's got absolutely no interest in selling Heung-min Son. And to me, I can understand why. Putting aside all of the other mechanisms of trying to raise money, the commercial viability of Heung-min Son as an asset to Tottenham Hotspur is unquestionable. Rumours are that he generates anywhere up to £20 million a year in additional revenues through a variety of sponsorship deals and shirt sales that he brings in from his loyal Korean fans, where he is, of course, a superstar. I don't know how much money we made in our pre-season tour to Korea last year, but whatever that is, you could also allocate to Heung-min Son as a commercial interest. To me, Heung-min Son, the player, didn't have a great season last year. Now the story emerges that he's been playing injured. I hope that if that is the case, that gets overcome and resolved soon and we can see Sonny get back to his best. I personally think that he will fit the Postecoglou system next season. Having that inversion coming in off the left with the right foot will suit the model, and it will be interesting to see if he can get back to his best. At the same time, however, he is a player who has always relied on his pace more than most, and as you get into your 30s, you do naturally lose half a yard of pace, and so whether or not we are going to see the gradual decline of Heung-min Son as a wonderful talent remains to be seen. But if you're a betting man, you would say, or woman, you would say that nature takes its course eventually. I'm not sure what the right number is for Heung-min Son from a fan perspective. From a Daniel Levy perspective, you probably think it would be 80 million or something like that, where you get into the Goldilocks zone where things are interesting. He's only got 2 years left on his contract. Maybe we'll revisit this story next year, as it looks like Daniel Levy has said no in any regard anyway. It also would leave you to the question of, if you do sell him, if a bid did come in for 80 million and it was accepted, what do you do with that money? Where do you go? Who do you replace him with? We've spoken ad nauseum recently on this channel about the variety of players that are available, that can play off the left, that can play off the right, that can play in both situations. I'm not going to name and go through all of them right now. Maybe we'll talk about that on a live stream tomorrow or on Thursday. But to me, the point of this story is more that I don't know whether Saudi Arabian football is going to be here to stay, whether the money that is going to, or that has been shown to be willing to be spent into Europe right now, is an anomaly. Is it the exception to the rule, or is it going to be a consistent thing? And if so, do Tottenham need to recognise that immediately and start to pitch some of our older players maybe to some of those Saudi Arabian clubs to see if it's a win-win-win for Tottenham? Because at the end of the day, if teams like Chelsea can make as many mistakes as they want in the transfer market, and because of their connections they can always find the get out of jail free card by pushing into Saudi Arabia, where the owners are the same and all into one big giant circle, then we can't compete with that. We can't compete with that. Until Daniel Levy sells, the club, and Enix sell the club to a new investor, and you would hope that investor would be either a private equity firm who happens to have the same connections as Clearlake Capital, or maybe to their very own, sovereign nation, of which there aren't that many left who haven't already invested in football clubs. Then Tottenham are only ever going to be nipping at the heels of the big guys. The story is sad, it's worrying. I don't blame anyone for trying to circumvent the rules. If they're not breaking the rules, then it's fine for them to do what they're doing. But unfortunately for me, it gets to a point where unless you join them, then you might as well recognise that you can't beat them. The game is broken all the way it is, and every time new rules come in to try to catch up with the procedures and policies that seem to be more and more frequent, there's a new set of windows that open to still allow you access to the very best without any kind of compromises or consequences for the processes that are being put in place. I don't know how Tottenham can compete with this kind of level of money. I just hope that the Premier League investigate it and that we get some clarification. Let me know your thoughts, guys. Like, subscribe and comment, and as always, bye bye.